Protests erupt across China in unprecedented challenge to Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy. Beijing CNN. Protests erupted across China on Saturday, including at universities and in Shanghai, where hundreds chanted "Step down, Xi Jinping, step down, Communist Party," in an unprecedented show of defiance against the country's stringent and increasingly costly zero-COVID policy. A deadly fire at the apartment block in Urumqi, a capital of the far western region of Xinjiang, which killed 10 people and injured 9 on Thursday, has acted as the catalyst for searing public anger as videos emerged that seems to suggest lockdown measures delayed the firefighters from reaching the victims. On dozens of university campuses, students held gatherings or put up posters to grieve the deaths from the Xinjiang fire and speak out against zero COVID. In several cities, residents in locked down neighborhoods tore down barriers and took to the streets following mass anti-lockdown protests that swept Urumqi on Friday night. Such widespread scenes of anger and defiance, some of which stretched well into Sunday, are exceptionally rare in China, where the ruling Communist Party ruthlessly cracks down on all expressions of dissent. But 3 years into the pandemic, many people have been pushed to the brink by the government insistent use of lockdowns, COVID tests, and quarantines. The, red, the ratcheting up of restrictions in recent months, coupled with a series of heartbreaking deaths blamed on an overzealous policing of the controls, has brought matters to the head. Protest in Shanghai. The anger led to a remarkable act of defiance in the financial hub of Shanghai, where many of the city's 25 million residents hold deep rancor, rancor against zero COVID. After being subjected to 2 months lockdown in the spring, late on Saturday night, hundreds of residents gathered for the candlelight vigil on Urumqi Road, which was named after the city to mourn the victims of the Xinjiang fire, according to videos widely circulated and promptly censored on Chinese social media and the witness account. Surrounding a makeshift memorial of candles, flowers, and placards, the crowd held up blank sheets of white paper in what is traditionally a symbolic protest against censorship and chanted "Need human rights, need freedom." Demonstrators stand by protest signs in Shanghai, China on Saturday, November 26, 2022. On multiple videos seen by CNN, people could be heard shouting demands for China's leader Xi Jinping and the Communist Party to step down. The crowd also chanted, "Don't want COVID test, want freedom," and "Don't want dictatorship, want democracy." Some videos show people singing China's national anthem and the International, the standard of the socialist movement, while holding banners protesting the country's exceptionally stringent pandemic measures. Rows of police officers who initially locked on from the outside started to move in to push back and divided the crowded around 3 a.m., sparking tense face-off with the protesters, according to a witness. The witness told CNN they saw several people arrested and taken into the police vehicle next to the makeshift memorial after 4:30 a.m. They also saw several protesters being grabbed by the officers from the crowd and taken behind the police line. The protest gradually dispersed before dawn, the witness said. On Sunday afternoon, hundreds of Shanghai residents returned to the site to continue protesting despite a heavy police presence and roadblocks. Videos showed the hundreds of people at the intersection shouting, "Release the people," in the demand for the police to free detained demonstrators. Crowd shouting, "Release the people," in Shanghai. This time around, police appear to have adopted a more hardline approach, moving faster and more aggressively to make arrests and disperse the crowds. In one video, a man holding a bundle of chrysanthemum gave a speech while walking on the pedestrian crossing as the police officer tried to stop him. "We need to be braver. Am I breaking the law by holding flowers?" He asked the crowd, who shouted, "No." In reply, "We Chinese need to be braver," he said to the applause of the crowd. "So many of us were arrested yesterday. Are they without job or without family? We should not feel afraid." The man put up the strong struggle as more than a dozen officers forced him into the police car as the angry crowd shouted, "Release him," and rushed towards the vehicle. Other videos show chaotic scenes of police pushing, dragging, and beating protesters. In the evening, after one protester was violently dragged away, hundreds of people shouted thrice at the police, according to a live stream. Police officers blocked Shanghai's Urumqi Road on Sunday. University campuses. Many of the protests have broken out on university campuses, which are particularly politically sensitive to the Communist Party, given the history of the student-led Tiananmen Square protest in 1989. In the early hours of Sunday morning, about 100 students gathered around the protest slogan painted on the wall at the prestigious Peking University in Beijing. A student told CNN that when he arrived at the scene at around 1 a.m., security guards are using jackets to cover the protest sign. The security guard tried to cover a protest slogan against zero COVID on the campus of Peking University in Beijing, saying "No to lockdown, yes to freedom, no to COVID test, yes to food," read the message written in red paint, echoing the slogan of the protest that took place on the Beijing overpass in October, just days before the key Communist Party meeting at which she secured the third term in power. "Open your eyes and look at the world. The dynamic zero COVID is a lie," the protest slogan at Peking University read. The students said the security guards later covered the slogan with black paint. Students later gathered to sing the International flag before being dispersed by teachers and security guards. Students at the Communication University of China, Nanjing, gathered in a bazaar on Saturday evening to mourn the victims of the Xinjiang fire. In the eastern province of Jiangsu, at least dozens of students from Communication University of China, Nanjing, gathered on Saturday evening to mourn those who died in the Xinjiang fire. Videos show the students holding up the sheet of white paper and the mobile phone flashlight. In one video, a university official could be heard warning the students, "You will pay for what you did today. You too, and so will the country." The students shouted in reply. The campus protest continued on Sunday at Tsinghua University, Another top university in Beijing, hundreds of students gathered on a square to protest against zero COVID and censorship. Hundreds of students in Tsinghua University in Beijing gathered on Sunday to protest against zero COVID and censorship. Videos and images circulating on social media show students holding up sheets of white paper and shouting democracy and rule of law, freedom of expression. In one video, a female student could be heard shouting to the cheers of a crowd, "From today onwards, I will no longer perform oral sex for state power." Ending lockdowns. In other parts of the country, residents demonstrated against the lockdowns of their neighborhoods following sweeping protests in Urumqi that forced the authorities to announce the gradual easing of the lockdown that lasted for more than 100 days. On Friday night, hundreds of Urumqi residents marched to the government building, chanting "End lockdowns" with some holding a Chinese flag. According to videos circulating on Chinese social media, and Urumqi resident. Smaller protests also erupted at residential communities across the city, which saw residents breaking down lockdown barriers and quarreling with officials. Urumqi residents demonstrated against a month-long COVID lockdown outside the government building on Friday night. Throughout the weekend, anti-lockdown protests have rocked neighborhoods in cities from Beijing, Guangzhou, and Wuhan to Lanzhou. According to social media videos, residents and multiple residential communities in Beijing defied the lockdown orders. In one compound, residents marched and chanted, "Say no to COVID test, say to freedom." In the northwestern city of Lanzhou, residents rushed out of lockdown compound on Saturday to roam free in the street. Videos sent to CNN by the residents show some upturning a COVID worker's tent and smashing a testing booth. Earlier this month, residents in the same neighborhood had taken to the streets to demand an answer from authorities over the death of the 3-year-old boy. He had died from gas poisoning after his father was blocked from taking him promptly to the hospital. That area and the other parts of Lanzhou had been locked down since October 1st.